Hey there, welcome back. We're going to get started with the playthrough. And the setup for this was already a different experience because the cascading events in our last attempted playthrough was very domestic oriented. And in this case, the Middle East is going to crap. And all kinds of, China has an economic meltdown. So we already have a very different experience, which is the hallmark of a good game for replayability purposes. So I do like that. So here's our playbook. Now, if I want to put my camera perfectly aligned to it, it's going to fall off my table. So I have to do a little bit of this. So my apologies there, but I do have enough table space. Like I could push everything. Let's do it. This is going to be painful. So we're going to push everything up just a little bit more so I can get more documentation room. That's the hard part about this game is I need to be able to have my book here. So here we go. We start with the flip book. It does a little bit of an introduction here, which we sort of covered already, but just understand that the turn just goes bing, bing, bing like this. And it's actually showing you here. These are the phases, and a player can always spend one action point to reroll any roll that occurs as part of a master action. So diplomacy, diplomatic, domestic, military, or presidential. What this is trying to tell you is if you're doing it's China's turn and they're rolling dice, you can't spend an action point to re-roll their dice, but for any of your actions you can. And so let's get to the bread and butter. Let's begin the turn sequence, and so here we go. So we have to perform these 6 steps, and first off is we determine how many APs we start with. They do not roll over year from year. If playing the normal game, we start each turn with 15 APs. And then from the cabinet effectiveness track, if our cabinet effectiveness is 4, we would get 2 more. And then it's reminding us that if we have the efficient presidential attribute, it would cause the APs to go up even more. Plus 2 if we have the amazing chief of staff. Right, so, and then we put it on the appropriate box. So first off, let's start with the basics. We have 15 APs, so this would go to 5, and then we're going to put this to the, wrong one. We're going to put this to the 10 side, like so, and then that's 15. All right, and then we look up here, and it says combat effectiveness, or cabinet effectiveness is plus 2, so we're going to make it 17. All right, and then, so we're doing beginning a turn sequence here. So then we're going to apply any effects other than APs gained from presidential attributes or exceptional White House resources. So this is basically a, we just got to look at all of our stuff and see if we get any effects. So the big thing here is we need to look at our card, the exceptional card, and our 2 personality traits. So right here, so we're starting the turn, so +1 RWC and +3 public appeal per turn. So let's resolve both of those one at a time. So the +1 RWC is the relations with Congress. That's what RWC means. So this 5 goes up to a 6. And then the +3 public approval is 1, 2, 3. I think I was saying public appeal, but it's APP is public approval. And then our cabinet here has, at the start of each turn, you may place 1 improving economy marker on the track and also place a cabinet, I keep wanting to say combat, cabinet effectiveness approving counter. So we had the economy drooping because of the Chinese collapse, but we're just going to go ahead and remove that. And then I'm just going to put it up here because we're going to need that again. And so we basically reverse the economy going backwards, which is very cool. And then we get to take an improving marker. It's a cabinet improving. So let me see if, oh yeah, I already have it out there. So right here, it says cabinet improving or worsening. And so we get a cabinet improving because of our awesome advisor. So that's really good. I definitely like that. All right, so then once per game, just as a reminder, we can ignore a financial crisis, which we didn't want to ignore a Chinese crisis, but one of our own we would, or a bank failure. So pretty cool. The Secretary of Treasury being amazing is actually quite a good thing for a president to have. So we're going to do that. Next, not on turn one. So we're going to skip improving our cabinet members. We're going to skip replacing a cabinet member. Again, we can't improve them. We skip all that, and then we move to set focused national intelligence. And if you look at our thing here, we're doing the beginning of turn sequence, by the way. We're still not through everything. So this one, we last time we had to look at the GM. Let me do this, because having it's a very large book. So we may either have 1 or 2 national intelligence counters this turn, and we have to check our strategic capabilities for cyber warfare and strategic recon. If both are greater, then we get both counters. If in any other case, you get 1. And so our cyber warfare is behind. Our strategic recon is ahead. So we're only going to get 1 national intelligence counter, and then place each counter in a world region of our choice, no more than 1 per region. And now, what do they do is the question. They do magical things. I just can't remember what those magical things are. But it does tell you to look on page 41 of the governing manual, so let's do that again real quick. It's been a week since I recorded last, and I already forgot. During the intel ops, the presence of a focused counter in a region provides die roll modifiers that help you. So I need to put a focused national intel. So there's a couple of spots I may want to do this. The first one is, of course, we're at war there, or the Middle East is melting down. By the way, this dropped back down to 2 once we resolve the crisis. So either of those spots would be a great location for a national intel collection. I am going to put it on the Middle East, because as much as we're at war over there, this is always a threat. Okay, so we just took care of all that. So now we're moving to the next page. And we are at U.S. Special Activations. We get to start our year with special activations. First thing is State of the Union. And so we're moving down here. State of the Union skipped on turn 1. So we're now moving to SOE Impact. And I think that's also not on turn 1. So we come over to here, and you can see not on turn 1. So SOE Impact. Improve strategic capabilities. This is the first thing I think we get to do. So we are now to here on the track. And so we get to pick 2. If the state of economy is 5 or higher, which we are, we get to roll for 2 different capabilities. And we don't have any of these counters, so we don't need to do with that. So basically, for each capability, we're going to roll a d10, and then the Secretary of Defense military rating provides an improvement. So our Secretary of Defense has a 1, so we'll get to subtract 1 on our die. If we roll a 1 to a 5, or 1 to 7 for the DARPA RC, which we don't have DARPA RC, so let's not worry about that. A 1 to a 5, we get to improve that capability by 1, otherwise there's no improvement. And so, yeah, we get to pick any 2 we want. We get to pick one that we're already ahead or one that we're behind. So let's bring the camera over and look at the situation. So there's our charts. And the cyber warfare is what's causing us to not get the bump in the national intelligence. I think, you always want to be ahead of your enemies in every way, or at least your rivals. Let's not call them enemies, but they're rivals. So we're technically behind on space warfare. We are tied on strategic missiles with one of them. We are behind on cyber warfare against both of them. And we're 1 ahead on just about everything else except for the strategic recon, which we're 2 ahead. So I think let's go for cyber warfare first. We'll try that one. And then the second one, which will be my second role, we should probably do space warfare just to get ahead. But I'm thinking strategic missiles might not be bad. Yeah, we'll do strategic missiles for the other one. So now remember, because we have a 1 on our Secretary of Defense there, we get a -1 to our die roll. So a 1 to a 6 is a success. So the first one is against the cyber. And of course I roll a 10. And then the next one is the space warfare, or no, missiles. I roll a 9. So neither one improves. And this really blows because we actually succeeded both times last time. But that's how the cookie crumbles. Next, we set our focus on the cabinet. Now, this is an interesting decision that we made last time. I did learn a little bit from it this time around. So you have these 6 markers here that I'm going to punch. So basically, like we talked about before, this one, I'm going to roll a die, and it's a 6-sided die, so this is a 50% chance to succeed. This one is a really high. There's only one way you could fail. And then this one is a low chance. And let's see. I mean, they're basically numbered, right? So the 3 is truly a 50%, and so is the 4 actually. And then the 6 is a miserable chance, right? So you have 6 priorities that we're going to do. The 1, of course, being the highest chance, and then this being a really low chance. And what are we doing? Where are we setting those? Well, those go right here in our middle board. I'm just trying not to bump components here. So we can improve relations with Congress, improve the economy, Homeland Security, which is one of our public priorities, and then press relations, domestic crisis, which we have a 1, and combat effectiveness, or cabinet, not combat. So which one is our top one? Well, Homeland Security is one of... Oh no, it's not one of the public ones. So I'm going to put a number 1 on the economy. And number 2, the economy is always important, real life and in game. Number 2, important item, cabinet effectiveness. If you don't have a good team, you're not going to be able to do good work. The third one, the media relations is always tough, but I'm going to put it on crisis. The 4th one on media relations. The 5th one on Congress. and the last one on Homeland Security. And it's largely because I think that our Homeland Security is pretty good. It says decrease one terror group in the U.S. by one level. There is no terror group at all at the moment. And it says if there is none, then +1 to Homeland Security and -2 to public approval. So Homeland Security, like, where's the chart for that? Oh, it's one of the charts over here on the left. So we can improve this. You have to pick something to be at the bottom, and I think that one for now. Now, obviously, we could get some events that are going to ruin our day, but for now, I think that's what we're going to do. So that wraps that up. We're done with that phase, and so we placed our 6. If there's any tension counters in the cabinet, remove 1. There aren't. If there are any remaining, we would have to place them. There aren't, so we don't have to worry about that. So then we go to here. So we finished this step, and now we're already at the bottom here. 1 action for POTUS and each cabinet member. So the president gets to do an action, any of the 4 charts, or you can remove a tension counter from anywhere on the game board, including Russia or China. We may also exchange an action for an action point. An action means I get to do a command. Action points are these things that we're tracking here. Each cabinet member may also perform 1. The VP and Secretary of State can perform diplomatic action. The VP and Chief of Staff can do domestic. And the Secretary of Defense is the only one that can do military. So the vice president can't do military. That's why you don't want a military guy for your vice president. It doesn't do you any good. Alternatively, an action can be used to remove 1 tension counter from anywhere on the game board except China or Russia. Only the president can remove from China and Russia, but we can remove tension elsewhere. And then it just says rotate the cabinet member to show that you took his turn. If the cabinet member has a +1 action, you can do another action. If this is your first game and you're wondering what to do, go to if this is your first turn in the booklet. Okay, so I do admit that it is hard to know what are you supposed to do. And my understanding of things is that a lot of these actions require you to do rolls against approval checks. So, for example, this region here Africa is aligned at a 5. So getting this to move up is very important, because the more aligned they are with us, the less they're going to be susceptible to Chinese influence, for example. But the more they're aligned down, the more they're going to accept those influence markers. And I found that China went nuts on South America, Central America, and Africa, and Asia. But that seems to be their focus. We didn't do Russia's turn, but I'm more than willing to bet that Russia's focused on Eastern Europe and the Eurozone, and possibly even the Middle East, because I know Syria is a big thing there. We can also remove tension markers, which we got a bunch of them in the Middle East. So that's another thing to consider. I don't know how important that is, but all I know is that the regional alignments, I found after trying to do other actions to be extremely important. So here's what I mean by this. So let's talk about, let's do diplomatic, because that's what I'm referring to. So if our Secretary of State were to take his turn, we have crisis relief. So we can take any regional crisis and try to improve the relief, right? So we roll a D10. If I roll a low number, I can decrease the regional crisis. Obviously, there's bad things that can happen. But what helps it? The diplomatic rating of your Secretary of State and regional stability. All right, stability is different than alignment. So this one relies on stability. But right here, improve one's alignment. So this is that action I was talking about. I think this is more important than I originally thought it was. I did set up a trade agreement with, I think it was Mexico. And I think that actually was going to pay off for us later, but it's one of those things that initially doesn't do much for us. We can try to remove a influence counter in a region. I actually think this is extremely important because after taking China's turn, their primary objective was to put influence counters everywhere. And if they end up getting 4 in one region, they get to form a base, which is no good, no bueno. But okay, how does this work? Choose a region with an alignment of 7 or 8. So the only way you can remove it is you need the alignment to be 7 or 8. Or 6 if they have no crisis. So like that Africa region only has an alignment of 5. That's what I mean. You need to get the alignment to move up. So that was an important thing. This trade agreement thing, I actually think I was most intrigued by this, and I tried really hard to make this work last time, and it did, but I don't think we ever got to a point in the game where I got to reap the benefits from that. So we can impose sanctions. So, for example, like Iran's messing with us, so I can put a sanction on them. So we could do a unilateral, which is us, right? And then a trending anti-U.S. counter on their relations with the U.S. track. If Russia or China, if we're doing it directly against Russia or China. A multilateral sanction, again, Russia or China could have, and there's all kinds of DRMs here. If there's tension markers, we get to actually improve our chances. And right here you can see it's plus or minus 3 max. So if you go through all these, and it clearly, you guys know how to read. So we can de-escalate a conflict, prevent a war from breaking out. And so this is any activation segment in which choose a conflict track and roll a d10 and decrease it by 1. So what that is that's these conflicts over here. So that's between other nations, not with us. So we're just basically trying to help Iran and and Israel to get along or whatever. North and South Korea to stop. And then broker or offer peace. So we can bring a war to an end, or a civil war, and there's several going on. So if it's a war that's not involving the U.S., you got a really low chance of peace. And then if it's a war involving the U.S., we could get peace there. And then, of course, there's factors like if we're winning, if there's a stalemate, and the diplomatic rating of your Secretary of State. So lots of stuff going on. Now, these tension markers, I can show you right here. This is the cup we're pulling from, and you can see half of them are face up. They have these numbers on them, and basically what I've experienced so far is if there might be a check. If there's tensions that equal 5 or more, then this bad thing happens. And so you add these up, right? And so if you had 2 tension markers on a country, this would be equal to 2. Some of them are +2, so it's not predictable. They don't all say +1. I know the majority of the ones you're seeing here do, and then some of them say no effect, which is good news for us. Tension markers are, they always trigger bad things for us, or they seem to. So removing tension markers can be good, because that could be the difference between going over the threshold or not. And it would cost us our action to do it. We don't have to roll any dice. It's a guarantee that you can remove it. So in some cases, getting rid of that one tension marker can be handy because at the end of the game or end of the action for one of these other nations, there's this rule that says replace the tensions you revealed. Maybe some of them will go away or whatever, but whatever tension markers are left, they get half of that rounded up. Well, half of 1 rounded up is still 1. So that one tension never goes away unless you do an action like this. So we can get rid of that final tension, if you will. So that doesn't sound like a bad idea either. So we could try to put sanctions on Iran because they're Iran. And What I think these do, because like if you look at like, so this is a unilateral sanction. We have 4 unilateral sanction markers. So if we sanction Iran, we can see these are numbers. Remember those other ones said +1? These would be -1. So what we're doing is we're hurting them, and some of them have no effect. So in fact, 50% of them do. I don't want to know which ones are which on that one. Holy crap. So 50% of them don't work. So we could think that we're doing something, and then it really doesn't. And then, of course, we can do the multilateral sanctions, which I think are going to be more effective. We could say, hey, look, Iran, you just disrupted peace in the Middle East and, doing your shenanigans. And so we want to do that. Getting rid of the influence markers, like I said, require the stability or the alignment to be so high. And when I saw China spamming out influence markers like candy, I was like, the very next thing I wanted to do was get rid of them. And then I realized I can't. I don't have regional alignment that's high enough to get rid of those. And so that's the part I'm trying to say is we got to get those up. Because like even in the Eurozone, like we're friends with most of Europe, you need a 7 or 8 or a 6 if the regional crisis is 0. Now the Eurozone has a crisis of 1 because of the refugees, but they were at 0, and I would have been able to get rid of the Russian influence, but I can't now. So this is an interesting one, and I thought that there was something that would improve our relationship with a country. Like, for example, if I wanted to go back to very close with Israel, I thought for sure there was something I could do. Oh, I missed the summit, right? There's a summit with China or Russia. Decrease tensions, sanctions, peace, and then regional alignment. I think this is what we want to do because that'll help us. All right, I know I mentioned that 30 times, so let's try to do something here. So I think a summit with Russia is always good, and you can see here that our diplomatic master actions, it can be done with it doesn't have to be done by the president. Russia right now does not have good relations with us. I would like to improve that. And then, we can choose that. So that's one of the things I want to do. And our Secretary of State, as you can see, she has a 1 bonus, but she gets +1 action, so she gets to do 2 things. And our vice president can do a domestic or a foreign, and he has a 1 bonus in either one. So we got a really good vice president too. So technically, if I want to do diplomatic actions, I can do 3 of them. Now, I know we didn't go over the domestic ones. Those are here. We're going to for sure get to do 1, and then the vice president can do a second. I'm going to think about that for a second. I'm concerned about the world affairs right now because this is how we can lose. And then obviously domestic is how you win. I want to not lose first. Let's keep control, keep our thumbs on the world order stuff. So summit with Russia is going to be one of our actions. And the other one with our Secretary of State is we're going to try to improve alignment. I just don't know which region. I have to figure that part out. We're going to improve alignment somewhere. So those are 2 things we're going to do. And then the vice president, I'll hold, maybe he'll do something later like remove a tension or something. I got to figure that out. Or maybe he'll do the trade agreement. Like, let's try that again. And my mind is like, I want to try this to see what kind of, like, how does this mechanically help us in the game to have a trade agreement? And, it says why. Try to have trade with a region. Yeah, I get that, but like, why? I'm assuming that helps us economically somehow. So anyways, let's start with, let's try to improve alignment in a region. So we got the Eurozone that's at 6. We have Eastern Europe which is also at 6. Both of those have Russian influence. If we can move them up one more, we can maybe get rid of the influence. I'm actually looking, there's not a zone in the world that has a zero crisis going on. Everybody's got crisis going on. But I'm actually going to try to improve the alignment in the Middle East. We are at 4, and that needs to come back up. So let's try to do that. So choose a region, make a regional alignment check. So that means I got to roll a 4 or less. If the roll is a natural 10, then they go anti-US. Otherwise, if they pass, so it actually is really hard to improve with a 4. So what I'm trying to say is if you have a 6, let me back up. An alignment check is this. This is at 5. So if I roll a 5 or less, I pass. If this was at 8, if I roll an 8 or less, I pass. So you can see that higher the alignment, the easier it is to pass and get more positive alignment. The lower the alignment, like in the Middle East, is at 4. That's actually tougher. And so my next debate is, how badly do I want to do that? Because it's since it's so hard, I might be just wasting my time. And I'm going to check real quick, because right here, under domestic charts, there's track checks, which is 20. Let's go to page 20, which is the back of the book. So we get the domestic, and then you get the world. So regional alignment is one of them. So you roll a D10. If it's equal or less than the current rating of the track you're testing, you've passed. And right here, the fail is a lot easier to hit. So if you're doing regional alignment in Pacific, and it's currently in the 6, then if you get a 7 or higher, you fail the check. So Russian and Chinese markers do affect this. +1 for each country if there's a Russia or Chinese influence in the region. And it's saying if you use POTUS or Secretary of State to improve in the region. But if you provide economic assistance or some other way to improve the alignment, it's not affected. So yeah, we're going to get a -1 because of our Secretary of State, but we're going to get a +1 because there's an influence there, Russia. So this may not be a good move. Let's improve alignment somewhere where we're stronger. So in that case, I know that China likes to spam those out. And so we got the Asia and Pacific here. You can see we're at 6. Let's improve the alignment there. China's going to reduce it by 1, or increase it by 1. Our skill is going to reduce it by 1. So, but I just need a 6 or a less, and we can, so I rolled a 3. And so then we get, they are improving their alignment. So you take a pro-US trending, because they don't actually improve, folks. It's got to be twice you have to succeed to get that to go up. So that's why the Israel thing is, or the Middle East thing is dangerous. We're down to a 4, so we have to succeed twice on a 4 or less roll. That's hard. So let's like try to get the guaranteed successes going. Get those regions that we know we can do something positive in. Okay, so we did that. Yes, now we get another one. So we're gonna do the summit now. And so the summit with China or Russia, and basically we just take the Russia summit book. That's what we're gonna do next. And yes, we did this in the last playthrough. I liked the way it turned out. So we're gonna go ahead and do World Peer Russia X, and then the summit here is on page 10. So there's a lot of stuff going on with this one. And again, remember, this is the second action of the of the Secretary of State. So we have a relationship of 2, so we get to address 2 problems. So choose the first problem area, then roll a d10 and do what the line says. Decide if we're willing to agree to what Russia says. And then here you could see if we roll a d10, there's a 2 or less, 3 to 5, 6 to 8. And this is what they're demanding. And then we have to agree to what they demand. And if we agree to what they demand, then this happens. So this doesn't happen just because we rolled. This is now Russia countering. So for example, if I say, hey, I want to remove the sanction on Russia, then what that'll do is get rid of the sanction that's on them, but also resolve tensions. And also remove tensions from our U.S. cabinet. And then they could also, like, for example, Russia offers more cooperation, place a -1 marker on them, or place an improving economy marker. Like, there's other things that could happen depending on what we roll. We could try to improve trade with them. So then they get an improving economy, and, things could happen. Or this one, stabilize the Middle East. Only if relations are 2 or higher. So we're at 2 with them. So -1 to regional crisis, remove 1 tension from Russia, or remove 1 unstable state counter from the region, which that could be pretty good. And then, of course, improve relations just helps us to move up. But it's going to be elastic. So we're going to have to do that multiple times. Last time we removed a sanction, which made sense at the time, but I think I want to try to, first of all, let's stabilize the Middle East. So let's try that one, and let's roll a die. So that's action 1. Stabilize Middle East. We just rolled a 1, which is going to be the best outcome for us. And 1, which is this column here, they see a stable region to be in their best interest. So there's no remove sanctions or anything like that. So -1 to regional crisis in the region. So this 2 drops down to a 1. So we got rid of 1 of the regional crisis. Then remove 1 tension from Russia, or remove 1 unstable state counter. So I don't know about the tension markers. There's only 2 of them on Russia at this time. But I would like to get rid of 1 of these unstable state counters. So that went from 3 down to 2. So I think that's the better move. And that's it for that one. So now there are more problems, actually. I forgot. Over here, there's jointly mediate a civil war ceasefire, which this would be like the Syria conflict. We can joint regional anti-terror campaign. Costs an action point to do. Contain a rogue state in Eastern Europe or some other region. Or control Iran's nuclear ambitions. And I think that's one I'm interested in. Only if no sanctions on Russia and we have a 3 or better relationship. So I think what I'm going to try to do next is I want to improve our relations with them. I don't want to necessarily remove the sanction yet. Let's just try to improve the relation. The trade thing would help their economy. I don't want to help their economy either. So let's try to improve our relations. I rolled a 1 again. That is excellent. Should have rolled that in the last 2 times I rolled. But so they see it in their best interest to improve relations. So we get a trending pro-U.S. counter on the relationship track. That's all it does. I know it sounds like so anticlimactic, but these things take time. They don't just happen overnight. So I do like the elasticity concept. It's frustrating sometimes, but it's a good concept. So do they have their own special counter, or I think they do. There we go. Trending pro-US right there. So that goes on to 3. So their relationship with us is still a 2. But I would say that we had ourselves a successful summit. And then I believe what we do is we deal with the summit results table. So we got to do another die roll. And then percentage of problems successfully dealt with. We are at 100%, which is down here, but it was 2 of 2, not 3 of 3. So we're going to be dealing with this here. So let's go ahead and roll. And this time we rolled a 9, which is not the best. We do get +2 public approval. So we were here at 46, so we go up to 50% public approval. And we remove 1 tensions from Russia. The other ones would have been fantastic because look, trending pro-US meant that our relations would have improved immediately. But rolling a 9 is never good. The high numbers are punishing. So we'll just take one of these tension markers off. Let's see what it was. It was a +1. So that goes back in the box, or back in the cup. Okay, so that was all just one cabinet member. That was the Secretary of State. So now we got the Vice President can do yet another type of action. And by the way, we did a summit with Russia. We can't do another. So the Russia summit used counter has to be put on, meaning we can't do another summit with them. I think for the rest of the year. It doesn't say, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it doesn't say. So now I'm looking for the domestic actions here, or diplomatic actions. It just says follow the procedure. So I don't know if that's just something missing, but fairly certain you can only do summits once. Yeah, it doesn't indicate anywhere on here. I'll look at the governing manual. Let me pause for a second. Well, I admit defeat. The governing manual explains that summits, do summit things, but it didn't explain that you're supposed to, that summit used marker or when it would go away. I'm going to assume you can do one summit a year. And so, summits are a big deal when you see them on the news or whatnot. So I'm going to assume that was it, and I can't do another. And it really should sell you somewhere, but it doesn't. It makes it sound like you can just spend 3 actions doing 3 summits with the way it's written. Okay, one thing that I did find interesting is that the trade agreement, I did find in a governing manual, it was explaining trade agreements, and it said that a trade agreement is most beneficial in an area that has high stability. If you have low stability, like the case of Mexico there, which has a stability of 2, it said that it can backfire on you. So I find that funny that we did do a trade agreement in Central America, and that the only thing that has lower stability than Central America is Africa, well, they're the same, and Middle East. So we have really high stability in Asia and Pacific, for example. That's at 6. The Eurozone is at 6. And so if we're going to do a trade agreement, we should probably do it with one of those. And I think that's what I'm going to do. This is going to be the Vice President action. And so we're going to try to make a trade agreement. Now, who with, though? It's with a region. So we can try to do Asia and Pacific or the Eurozone. I think both of them are excellent options. I'm going to try the Pacific region first. So it's going to cost us 1 action. We can spend 2 action points for each step below to help us get a -1 to our die roll. And so if that region has a trade agreement pending counter, continue to step 2. It does not. Make a regional alignment check. So again, this is the 6 or better. If you pass, place a trade agreement pending counter there, and then we do the second thing. So we're going to go ahead and do that part first. So we're going to do alignment check. It's 6 or under, and I get a -1 to the die roll. And then because there's China influence, I do think we just read that hurts us. I should have this memorized, and I don't. My apologies. And of course, there's 100 books that I'm flipping through, and I can't find the book I need. Here we go, track tests. So we're going to do a track test again. And then Russian and Chinese influence does not affect a straight regional alignment check. It does affect diplomatic master action number 2. But see, we're not doing number 2. Number 2 was the one that's improved alignment. So yeah, it only affects us if we're doing the improved alignment. So I actually get a -1 for my skill. So that means a 7 or less. I rolled a 2. So we're good there. So now we got trade agreement pending. And let me see if I can find the token for that. Here we go. We have a trade agreement pending. Goes into the Asia and Pacific. And then we're going to go to step 2 now. Make a relations with Congress check. So Congress is at 6. If we pass, we can flip it. So basically, we need Congress to agree. If we pass, and -1 per AP spent, up to a maximum of 2 APs in each step. So if I want to spend 2 APs, I can make another -1, but I have to decide now before I roll. It's a 6 or less, and I actually have a 1. So I believe I get to apply because it's a relations check. It's another track check. So yeah, I believe I get to apply my 1 to that. So that would be a 7 or less again. So I rolled a 1. So I made it indisputable. All right, so they agreed. So now we have a trade agreement established with Asia and Pacific. So we got Japan, and that's a good area to have a trade agreement with. And so we passed. And so that's it. So I think the trade agreement will do. See, it says refer to the trade agreements chart, WD4. If only I can find WD4. So we have the world charts here. And if I go to page 6, so right here, the immediate effect. When you place a trade agreement counter in a region, you get an immediate trending pro-U.S. counter in the region. Boy, that's missing from the other sheet. I don't appreciate that. I like using these sheets, and if I did not know to go here and do this, I would not have known to do that. See, it doesn't say that anywhere in here. If you down here. Oh, there it is. Put a trending pro-U.S. I apologize. I was wrong. No hate spam on the comments, please. I was wrong. I promise I was wrong. I know I'm on the internet and I'm admitting I'm wrong. That's breaking all kinds of rules, but I was wrong. All right, so we're going to take the trending US and make it pro. Oh, they were already trending pro-US. Even better. So they were already trending pro-US. So this marker, I'm just going to go ahead and put it down here. So what happens is the alignment just went up to 7. That was excellent. Excellent. And then it's telling us that during step 10 of the end turn, we're going to do D10 and consult this table. And then things are going to happen based on how we're doing here. So I like that. All right, so that was the vice president. So we did the vice president and we did the Secretary of State. Now we got the domestic side and we have the military. And then we still have the president as well. Now, the game book was recommending that we tilt them to show that those guys have already taken their actions. So we have our Chief of Staff domestic, and we have Secretary of Defense, and of course, Mr. President ourselves. Now, these domestic, this is domestic, hold on. The diplomatic actions is basically done unless I want the president to do one of these again. So I'm going to set this off to the side. This is where it gets insane. There's too many things to go through. But if we go to the Chief of Staff, he's doing one of these. So real quick, we can attempt to stimulate the economy. Economy is doing good. We could try to do that. Address a domestic crisis. There is one. Before they can cause a domestic failure. We can address a lingering domestic issue, which try to reduce that. We can improve relations with Congress. We can raid a terror target in CONUS. There aren't any. Remove one tension, which there aren't any. Discredit a congressional opponent, which might get rid of them. Encourage bipartisanship, which is never a bad idea. Track terror targets in CONUS. There aren't any. And party fundraising and support. This one would improve party relations, which in the past we took big hits because we had the scandal, but now our party relations are pretty good. The good news here is it costs an action, and you just automatically get a bump the moment you do this. So out of all of his options, there's not a whole lot there's a lot of them that there's no need to do them. Bipartisan sounds good. I didn't read the details. Dissuading congressional opponents may be good. I was looking to see, is there anything that would let us submit a bill? But I don't think there is. So we could try to improve relations with Congress. The good news is because of my presidential skill, I got a free bump on this. So I got a free bump here. We almost went backwards because of the Chinese thing, but we were able to bump this back. I think that if we're going to get a bill to pass, we either need to do this or this. And I think those would be good. I mean, obviously improving party relations would be okay, but I think we're okay in that department. So let's look at these two. So this is going to cost an action point. We would roll a d6. If I roll a 2 or less, it improves. A 3 to 5 is nothing, and a 6 makes it worse. And -1 if I have the moderate influence attribute, which I don't. This is horrible. I do get a -1 because of my skill. So theoretically, I can't get the 6 result. But there's a real high chance that I'm going to get nothing. This one sends them back to the draw cup. You can spend 1 action or 1 AP in addition. A 1 or a 2 puts them back in the hole. A 3 is nothing. A 4 or 5 is a dirty trick, and then I lose relationship with that's and then or I can get an actual scandal. Ugh. -1 if public approval is 60% or greater. I have 50%. If I spent an AP, I get a -1, which would help me avoid the scandal. Remember, I also get a -1 because he's got a -1 on him. See right there, domestic rating. Now that's interesting. This one does not show domestic rating, so does that mean I don't get to apply it there? Ooh, that's a possibility. +1. If the opponent's legislative rating is 2 or 3. Oh, I see. Yeah, there's little numbers on them. Here, let me show you. That's a 3 right there on the top right corner. This one's a 1. There is an opponent that has a 1, and there's another that has a 2. And then +1 if relations with Congress is less than 4. Relations good. So we would actually get a -1 if we spent an AP, and a -1. So that'd put us down to 4. So we could still get exposed for a dirty. I'm going to just do this one. And I'm going to check the governing manual real quick, because I'm confused. I thought that any of the domestic master actions got the benefit from your skill. And now it's sounding like this one spelled it out, this one did not. So does that mean that the skill doesn't apply to every situation? And that's the part that I'm concerned with. So let me pause, I'll look this up. Okay, so the rules say that you get a bonus towards your DRM in some situations. So it doesn't like specifically spell it out, but so I think it's only going to be in the situations that it's denoted. So like here, your domestic rating matters, whereas here it does not. And then over here, it doesn't matter at all. Now it does say domestic check in some of these things. So when you do your track checks, so you find the current rating, roll a D10. If it's that or less, you pass. Yeah, so there's no bonus even on these checks. So you do get the option to spend an action point to re-roll, though. Now, one last thing to remind you is that my Secretary of Chief of Staff, I meant to say, has a bonus action. So we get to do 2 things here, not just 1. So we could just do the guarantee and get this up as max as possible. And one of the thoughts on why would we do that is, if you look here, there's a little number 2 underneath, and I think that's prestige because it says LPs here. Anytime your party relations decreases, right, you lose your friends. But I think this number 2 down here is prestige, and then you go to 3 and then 4. So you're going to increase your score for the end of the game by getting that up. So, you know, maybe that's worth doing. I don't know. The bipartisanship in Congress, I'm going to zoom in because I'm being lazy here. So see how there's move my finger out of the way, but there's a 1 and then there's 2s on the far right. There's 2 2s, there's a 1, and I'm currently sitting on a 1. So what that's saying is I can have 1 bill in Congress that's waiting to be passed or voted on. If I had it up to enough bipartisan cooperation, that could move up to 2 instead of 1. So by moving it up right now, I actually get no net benefit, other than I'm 1 step closer to where I want to be. And then the discrediting opponent, there is a possibility we're going to get angry Congress. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and let's try to discredit an opponent. Let's do it. So I can spend an AP for a -1. And I think in order to avoid the exposed for dirty tricks, we absolutely need to do that. Because if I'm going to be dirty, let's move down to 16. So I just dropped the APs down to 16. So we're going to get a -1. I'm also going to get another -1 because of our chief of staff. So I got a -2. The legislative rating If it's 2 or 3, he gets a +1. Now there's one there that has a 1 on it, and there's one there that has a 2. I'm assuming if I can get rid of the 2, that's more powerful than getting rid of the 1. They're both radicals, though, so I don't know if radical has any effect on the game now that we've established the initial thing. But I'm going to go after the easy one. Let's go after the 1. So he doesn't get a +1, or the game doesn't. And our relationship is definitely better than 4. So I get a -2 to my roll, so only a 4 is going to hurt me. So basically I got to roll a 6. A 6 is bad. I want to roll a low number, but 6 is very bad. And I rolled a 3, which is fantastic. A 3 is normally no effect, but because of my things, I'm down to 1 or a 2, and the opponent goes back in the draw cup. So this would have been nice if I went after the bigger one, but so this is the opponent I was referring to. It is a radical. It only had a value of 1, and she's now gone. I think she used to be a bartender in her previous life. She's going back to being a bartender. No more congressional stuff. Okay. So that was one of our 2 actions, and now we got a bonus action. And I think I'm going to go for the points. I'm just going to take the guarantee. 1 action, party is not 3 or less. We're going to increase our party relations $1. And my dog is on my cord. My apologies. And so we're going to move that up to 7. I do want to improve this, but this is not a guarantee, and I'm going to take the easy points. If that is points, I'm going to take the easy one. And then I'm realizing I have charts everywhere. Okay, so that puts us to 3 of the 4 are done. Now we have the military, which only has 1 action, and then we have the president. So let's do the military one. We are at war, so I think I want to do something to help there. We can move or deploy forces. I don't know how much I want to do that, but that's probably not a bad idea. Request rapid capabilities. Military actions may be taken if there are less than 2 rapid capability counters on the U.S. strategic track. I can place a rapid capabilities DARPA counter on one of the tracks. So what does rapid capabilities do for us? What a great question that is. It said do a rapid capabilities marker. I'm looking for one. I don't see one yet. I need to pause because I can't find it. Okay, I finally realized what these rapid capabilities are, and actually they're quite good. So the token we're looking for is this one, by the way. I did eventually find that. So do you know how we picked 2 capabilities here on these tracks, and then we rolled our die and we failed in both? These rapid capabilities are additional dice rolls that we get to do. So basically, if we have rapid capabilities on something, it'll improve it. So we get to basically roll for each of these. And if these are successful, it's going to move up on its own. So it's accelerating our capabilities in certain areas. So we have less than 2 rapid capability counters on the board, so we're going to spend 1 action. And we do have to spend 1 AP, and I think that's an AP well worth spending. And then we get to put our rapid capabilities out. And I think one of them for sure needs to be cyber warfare. And then the other one is a trickier one. We can pick something that we're already winning in to stay ahead, or something that we're behind. I am going to go ahead and choose something that we're neck and neck. So we're going to do strategic missiles. So now we have two capabilities. So basically it means we're going to get to roll the dice 4 times. We get to pick 2 based on our economy and roll dice, and then we get to roll dice for those 2. And so that does mean that those could be moving up multiple times. It's really cool. It actually took me a very long time to figure this out because the rules don't spell it out for you. But, I mean, it's in there, but it's not as clear as I would want. So we already did this. I didn't even look at the other ones. The direct intel gathering ops, this would get terror groups to expose themselves so we can attack them. Raid can't be done unless they're exposed. And this one is not a bad one. I think that's what we did last time. That allows us to improve our alignment with a region, including the Middle East would have been really nice. So maybe we'll do that one at some point. I don't want to initiate hostilities, and then we can train an ally, which I'm not interested in at this time. So that's done. And now we have the president. And he's got special actions just for himself. So he can do presidential presence. And he can raise his rating on media relations and public approval. He can use the bully pulpit to rally support for or against a bill. We don't have a bill, so we can't do that. We can corral the cabinet to improve its effectiveness. We can create goodwill, which is what I think we did last time. This puts goodwill markers on ourselves. We can invite an ally leader to improve relations with the ally and remove tensions. I think I want to do this with Israel. Since we lost our relationship with them, we can get the relationship back up and then remove tensions. We could do a presidential trip. And then there's ask for resignation of one of our cabinet, which I definitely don't want to do there. What I'm looking for is the rules we're talking about how we could do economic aid. I didn't see that anywhere. I don't see economic aid here. And I don't see it on the... It's definitely not on the domestic master action. It's not on military. I'm looking at the diplomatic one. There's no economic aid. There's crisis relief. Yeah, because there was I was reading somewhere how economic aid will help. And I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. I want to do economic aid, but it doesn't look like economic aid is even on here. So I was expecting it to be on the presidential one since I didn't see it on any other ones. During any blue actions, I can spend 2 action points to take an additional action. That's another thing that's important. So what I want to do, though, is I want to invite Israel to the White House. It's going to cost 1 action. Fine. I can spend an AP. Yeah, I'll do that. I want this to succeed. So it's going to go down to 14. And I'm going to choose Israel. And if I get a 6 or less, I improve by 1 and remove attention. I get -1 and another -1. Nope. And +1 if estranged. So I don't get to use any of my skills, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and do this. I rolled a 7. And I paid for the -1, which turns it into a 6, which means I succeeded. So that was well worth paying for. So we get to grab the Israel and put the very close back out. Remove the tension, which was a +2. I don't know if that was good or bad, but a +2 is worse than +1, that's for sure. So now I can choose to spend 2 action points to do something else if I wanted. If I did a presidential trip, I can try to, do like I was explaining, let's go to Ireland, raise our pro-US and Eurozone. I think I'm good. Somebody gave me advice to not be so happy, gun trigger happy, like I was spending my AP points too quickly, because I have to go through many, many actions before the end of the year. So that brings us to the end of year 1. So we're going to start the activation sequence next. And I'm going to go ahead and end it here so it's a nice clean break. And then we'll start the activation sequence when I return. Thanks for watching.